Welcome, folks. This is the Podman community meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 6th. And this meeting happens on the first Tuesday of even numbered months. We will try to make the timing every now and then friendlier for India, China, Australia. Topics are driven from meeting requests or emails to me, so however works best for you. I've put the agenda up in the in the chat for the room, so if you want to get in there, go ahead and take a look there for what we're going to have for topics today. And generally, we have discussions for Podman, Builda, Scopio, and related container projects. So if you have anything related to those technologies, we're happy to have it. Our meeting notes are noted here as well. And then for today, we have topics of Podman 5.2 from Matt Hean. And then Paul's going to give us a quick little demo for Podman aardvark DNS TCP update. And then EOL data discussions from Anders. I did have a couple other things lined up for today, but had to have the folks who are going to present, unfortunately, had to back out, but they will be here for next month's, or not next month's, but for the October meeting. And I think that's about all I have. I will be taking notes on the HackMD. If I mistype anything, or especially if you have any links or additions to that, I appreciate you. Go ahead and add them to the HackMD as well. And with all that, I'm going to stop sharing. And I will hand it over to Matt.
Okay, so I'm going to do a brief discussion of Podman 5.2, which just came out last week. 5.2 has been a relatively quiet release, another one after 5.1. So we had a very big breaking change release with 5.0. We're starting to be a little calmer after that, be a little more measured. But also, we have a lot of people inside the Podman team working on CI refactoring and general fixes to our development processes, which is reducing the amount of time we're spending working on Podman directly, at least until that's done. One of the things that did spawn was a lot of flake fixes. We have a lot of race conditions inside Podman that got resolved in this last release, and a lot of just other bugs got fixed as well. But feature-wise, we had libkrun support merged. This is a pretty big one for Podman on Mac because it lets you create VMs with GPUs mounted into them. And we also had a fair number of fixes, or not fixes, fair number of additions to Quadlet. So Quadlet's really getting good at this point. It feels like every release we get closer and closer to supporting the entire Podman feature set. Other than that, decent number of non-breaking changes, couple flags, had their exact meetings tweaked, things of that nature. So on the whole, relatively calm release, and I am expecting at least one more release this year, probably in the October-ish timeframe, and potentially another one after that. We'll see. And that's about all I have. Back to you, Tom.
Yep. For the 5.2, we're expecting a Z or 2 release over the next few weeks, months.
I am hoping that we're going to get a 5.2.1 out next week with a variety of bug fixes that have been accumulating that didn't quite make it in time. 5.2.2, a little far on the horizon to predict, but I do think we will have one. Just don't really know when yet.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Any questions on any of that for Matt? Okay.
There was a question in the chat about this, the new kernel mount feature requirement, asking for clarification if it's, I think it was if it was backported to rel or something, but that's.
I do know it should be in all rels we're delivering. We haven't had any problems doing it.
I think they were just requesting that to be mentioned next to the kernel version number or something. Yeah.
Understood. It was a sufficiently old kernel that I didn't feel it was necessary, but then again, rel is on rather old kernels, so I should probably clarify that next time.
What chat was that in, Anders or Matt?
It was the Podman chat. The matrix/IRC/
okay.
Discord, whatever chat room. Yep. There's only one, right? So.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was a discussion in GitHub that I'd missed.
I answered that it was backported into rel 8. So should be working, I guess. But we are no longer shipping Podman updates and relate like Podman 5 updates, so we don't test it.
Okay, so at this point, I think I'll hand it over to Paul since he's got the screen already. We can talk about aardvark DNS and TCP.
Okay. So in case you don't know what aardvark DNS is, aardvark DNS is our custom DNS server that is there to resolve container names between containers on the same network. So if you have two containers, one with the name container 1 and the other container 2, then you can do a DNS lookup on the name and get the IP of the other container in order to communicate between them. So far, this was only done. So DNS is mainly a UDP protocol, but it also works via TCP, which is near the cases have larger DNS messages you need to send because UDP packages size are limited. The protocol only allows for so much information. So in this case, all modern clients will transparently fall back to or switch over to TCP and use that. And aardvark DNS so far couldn't handle that. That is now fixed in what's the version 1.12. aardvark DNS 1.12 and NetArdvark 1.12. So if you have these versions, we can now first create a network and where we have DNS enabled by default. So just call it N1. So just run. Let's do it interactively. And there I created a Fedora-based image with dig installed already, which is, so it's just a Fedora image, but I have dig. So we can just do a public lookup. And if you look in etcresolve.conf, so this is the network gateway IP where aardvark DNS is running on the host. So if I show like this, so we now see aardvark DNS process running, and it's running on two networks because I also had another container already running from testing, I guess. We left it running. And so yeah, you see it's binding UDP, it's binding the TCP socket, and if we do the dig again, you see at the bottom, it's using UDP by default because it's a normal small request. But if you try to request something larger, like some domains have a lot of TXT records that will create a bigger response. The redhat.com domain is an example. You now see at the bottom, it's automatically using TCP. You see it's like a larger payload message size here. And previously, this wouldn't work. If you had like crazy large records, you usually don't see this with like the A and Quad A records because they are some limited IPs only, but it's like TXT records or some, I don't know, some SRV or whatever records you might request. There you might see that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think I can show one other thing. Just try to. So I can. One other thing I fixed. So there was a problem in previous versions. If you do not, or if you already have a DNS server on port 53 running, right? Like on all addresses, then you would. I think, is it still running somehow? It's still running somehow. No problem. Of course, if you don't test properly, that's what happens. Yeah. So just as an example, so I have the port already bound, and now we should get a new error, which tells us that aardvark DNS is not running, and previously it was just ignored, which was very confusing and led to some upstream issues where users were wondering why their DNS isn't working. And it was because it was already some other DNS server listening on the port. Yeah, I think it's pretty much everything you can say about that. Any questions?
I just wanted to point out and confirm. So aardvark 112.0 and 1 will be in Podman 5.2.0 and above, correct?
Yes, like I mean, they work independently. Like you can update only network and aardvark if you like to, but yeah.
Yep, and no plans for further back, so it'll be 5.2 and above.
Yeah, like it was a large refactor, so there's like no way we are going to backport this realistically. So
Great.
112 and above.
Any other questions for Paul? Right. Thanks, Paul. I will now turn it over to Anders for the discussion on statements about EOL date, and I cannot spit that out. Anders, I hope you do a better job with it than I did.
Yeah, sure. We can go with end of life instead.
Okay, it's easier.
Yeah. No, there is a website called endoflife.date, which has taken upon itself to gather end of life dates for various products, and it also includes some of the open source projects. So there was a page for Docker Engine, that is the Moby server. And then there was a request to do a similar page for the Podman engine. I mean, for the Linux-based server software. So I did such a page by just gathering the release dates, and then there was a question about which release cycles are end of life and which are still supported, and so on. So we had some discussion on that. So I think we landed upon that upstream, the latest release is supported, so currently 5.2, and the others are not supported upstream, but they are supported in Fedora and in RHEL. But those have individual product pages on this website, so they are not listed under the Podman. And then there was some recommendations from upstream that you should state this on the website somewhere, like on podman.io, what users can expect if you're following semantic versioning, and how long a release is supported for, if there are any LTS releases and so on. And then I posted in the agenda, I posted a link to the the preview of the PR I made, which is basically a YAML file with dates, and then also a small graphic visualization of the same dates.
So I'm still a little unclear here. Is the ask that we set an EOL date when we create the release, or that we keep a consistent list of EOL dates when the release actually EOLs?
Yeah, so currently it just says EOL:true, but they were saying it was more of interest for the end users, if they would know how out of date their 3.4 deployment is. I'm not sure if that's relevant actually, but It was just a website presentation thingy. So now it's just a green or red color. There are no dates on when it stopped being updated because it was, you couldn't really automate this from the Git tags or the GitHub releases because 4.8 grows like silent fairly quickly, but 4.9 continues to get releases after 5.0 is out. So there is a small overlap when the major version is out.
Yeah, we've never formalized a policy on that, but it would not be a bad idea on our part to do so, especially considering it usually for us is going to go around Fedora releases, honestly. Like we are obligated to keep the previous minor release around until the Fedora release associated with it dies. So we can actually, Paul, I think we could set EOLs based on that. Would you agree?
I mean, yes, but if the question is like we cut 5.2 like 2 weeks ago or what, then the question is how long does 5.2 live right now, right? And the answer is we don't know until we cut 5.3 and there's no date for that. So I think that's sort of the timeline thinking. Otherwise, as an upstream policy, that's easy to say only the latest is supported, but that's not predictable from an external view what that means. If we cut a release tomorrow, it's no longer supported.
I wonder if we could say that we guarantee at least 2 months of support for every minor release. So say 5.2 is guaranteed to be supported August and September. And then we could extend that support if necessary if we're going to do, say, an October 5.3. But I don't think we've ever done minor releases on a shorter cadence than 2 months.
And when you're thinking minor release, you're thinking an XY release.
Yeah, XYZ. XYZ support is we support it until the next XYZ comes out and you're expected to immediately update. XYZs are pure bug fix releases. If you're not keeping up to date on the bug fix releases, I can't do much for you.
Yeah, I think they call them patch releases in the Sembar lingo.
Yeah, sorry.
The C digits, I mean. But it's really up to the project to define these things. It will just this website will just gather information and link to it. I thought it was using I originally used the Git tags, but then I noticed it's actually using the GitHub releases. So some of the dates were off by one, but it's more or less the same. And especially with the early releases, there could be a couple of days before the GitHub release was in order after it was tagged because the CI was not super. But nowadays, it's more or less the same day, usually. Then there was another discussion on when the server is available, like when is your Podman machine version updated? But I don't think we will go into this on this website. But that's a source of confusion for some users.
That is mostly solved at this point. Now that we've moved over to OCI artifact-based distribution, we're building those same day. We make sure we have the resources on the team available to get the appropriate images out same day. And we're also moving toward a process where it'll be completely automated. Right now, it's manual intervention to get the images built.
Yeah, and of course, the user was asking about the Windows WSL image, which is the only one that does not follow the process because it's using Fedora.
That is also, we're looking into whether we can fix that.
But it's like close enough.
Yeah.
And then in Podman Desktop, it will show you the client version. So and then you think you're updated, and you're wondering why the bugs aren't fixed and so on. So there's some minor things left to fix. No, that was basically it. Just wanted to share this image. Hopefully it will be merged upstream and will be available like on the normal site. And then there is automation in place. So whenever you make a new GitHub release, it will update the patch versions. And when 5.3 is out, then someone has to make a PR to like add a new release cycle to the webpage. The same goes if you want to add any text for like certain releases are supported for longer in certain distributions, stuff like that. Right now, it just says that the upstream project is supported by the containers community, and there is no like support contracts from this community.
This is something I would like to get more clarity on into our README. I don't know what kind of a formal policy we can evolve here, but I feel like it would be nice to have more clarity for the community as to how long they can expect releases to live. I know Paul is immediately going to say we don't plan that far in advance, but I think we can make certain guarantees when we make a release.
The recommendation from the upstream is that you put the information on the website, because if you put it in a repository, then you might end up with a situation where you have different policies for different branches. So, you know, like the current documentation, when you make a fix to master and then someone is wondering why it doesn't apply to the release and so on. So it's probably better to do these things on podman.io, and then you can update them whenever.
Yeah, understood. Tom, you're muted.
Trying to type notes and talk at the same time doesn't work well. So is there any further action that we should do for this for now?
I don't think so. Also for Paul, I changed the title from Podman Engine to Podman on popular demand, popular request. I don't know. And then the same day, someone was posting the immediate release of Podman 1.12, and I was like, yeah, now it's starting. But it's Podman Desktop 1.12. Yeah. And that's all I had, so you can open it up for the other discussions.
You said
Tom, you're breaking up.
Tom's video has stopped moving for me.
Yeah, I think Tom may have dropped. Tom, can you hear us?
are getting through.
Okay, we can hear you now, Tom. Your network is back.
Okay. Yes, I love my ISP at times. That was not one of those times. I didn't quite hear what Andrew said at the end there. I don't know if we have any further discussion or if we should move on at this point.
I think we're going to move on.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
what I said. Move on.
Okay, we'll move on, which leaves us only with any open forum questions or comments. Does anybody have any questions or comments or ask that they want to do here now? Very quiet. I'll let y'all think real quick about that, and I'll just go over what's coming up next. So our next community meeting is on October 1st, 2024. We're doing, again, the community meetings are on even-numbered months on the first Tuesday of the month. And our next Cabal meeting is not July 2nd, as I have it in the notes. That must be September 1st, right after Labor Day for a bunch of us here in the US. So that'll be our next Cabal meeting. I'll fix that up in the notes. Again, that one is on odd number months that we're doing that, and it's the first Tuesday of the month. For the next community meeting, we're going to have a Dosu demonstration. Brent or Matt, let me know if I'm mispronouncing that, from Devon Stein. And then,
Yeah, I don't know how it's pronounced.
okay, DOSU. Looks interesting, so that'll be a good little topic for us. And then Sally O'Malley, who was here last time with us and had hoped to be here today, but got called away because she's getting ready for DevConf US. If you're not hooked up with that, give that a look up at devconf.us, happening in Boston on August 15th, I think, just right around the corner. Anyway, she's going to be doing an AI lab demo with GPU pass-through on the next community meeting. So with all that, I'm going to give questions one last chance. Topics? I'm not hearing anything. Given that, I will thank the presenters and we'll stop the recording now. So thanks all.